Good evening, everyone. The time is 5:30. It is Monday, May 5th, 2025. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that this meeting takes place on the traditional territory of the Stahelis. There's no public hearing tonight, so we'll move to agenda item 4, which is introduction of late items. Are there any late items to introduce this evening? Seeing none, I'll move to agenda item.
So move, Your Worship.
Sorry, I missed that. Approval of the agenda. I think it's moved by Councillor Fascio, seconded by Councillor Vital. Any discussion to that motion? I'm going to catch up tonight. Any discussion? I'll call the vote. All in favor, and that carries. Any conflicts of interest to declare tonight pursuant to our approved agenda? Seeing none, I'll move to item 7, adoption of council minutes. Could I have a motion? Do you need them separately, Corporate Officer, or together?
Thank you. Any way council would like to do them, if they want to do together, that's totally fine, or separate.
Could I have a motion to adopt the minutes from A and B that are on our agenda? Moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Schweinbenz. Any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, and that carries unanimously. Item 8 in our agenda is business arising from the minutes. Is there any business tonight arising from the minutes we've just adopted? Seeing none, I'll move to item 9, delegations and petitions. And I understand Brian Zazabo, am I pronouncing it close? Zazbo is from BDO Canada, our auditor, and has a short presentation.
That's close enough. I've had worse. So thank you very much for the invitation to present to you. I will be referring to the small page numbers at the bottom left of my report. And I'll maybe flip past the first few pages, which are just introductory in nature. Starting on page 4 of the report, just gives a bit of a snapshot of the audit and the materiality that was used. And when we talk about materiality, the numbers there might look big in comparison or in respect of your financial statements, but the materiality numbers are really used as a guideline for us to determine what amount of error might be acceptable before we can not sign the auditor's report. They're also used to input into our statistical samples, so it spits out a number of samples that we need to select for a particular account. It doesn't mean that we don't look at things that are less than that number. We certainly do, but it's just for us as a guideline. Those numbers didn't change through the audit, so they remain the same from the planning process right through to the completion. We always have to ask management and council to let us know if they're aware of any fraudulent activity or any suspected fraud during the course of the year. We were informed of none, and we did not detect any indications of any fraud during the course of our audit. Move to the next page, the status of the audit. We're substantially complete and have been for a number of weeks, and completion of our auditor's report is just pending council's approval of the financial statements, and we do have to have approval as opposed to acceptance. It's a little bit different than what the community charter requires, but we have to hear that council approves the statements, and then we will receive the signed management representation letter from management, which is attached to the end of this report in an appendix, and we'll update our subsequent events procedures, which primarily consists of requesting of management of any events that have occurred subsequent to our field work that should maybe be considered in the financial statements. Move to page 6 with the audit findings. And so these are what we call the significant areas or significant risks that we address during the audit. And one of the risks that we address in every audit is the potential for management override of controls. And the reason for that is if management wanted to, they could override specific internal controls in the compilation of the financial statements. So we do have to take that into consideration. It's not specific to the Village of Harrison Hot Springs or any other organization. And so what this primarily means is that we have to review any unusual transactions, anything that's outside of the normal course of business, and also we do have to review the journal entries that are prepared and executed during the year and right up to the time of our audit. And so all this testing was completed, and there were no issues noted in terms of potential override. Another consideration that we have to, or another area that we have to consider, although it's really not relevant in a local government environment, is the potential for risk of fraudulent revenue recognition. And what that means is there could be a potential that revenue is recognized too early or too late. But the nature of the revenue streams of a local government, plus the lack of motivation to manipulate the revenue specifically, and lack of opportunity, quite frankly, means that we can rebut this presumption. But there still is a fair amount of complexity around revenue recognition, just because of the way the accounting standards are applied and could be applied. So we do pay attention to all of the revenue streams, do the appropriate testing and the various substantive analytical procedures. Again, all the testing in this area was completed with no matters to note. The third item, starting on page 7, is employee future benefits. The reason this is a risk item is because these are payments that are made in the future that are reflected as a liability on the financial statements because the employees have already earned them. But because they're paid in the future, there's a fair amount of estimation and assumptions that are made in terms of inflation rates and discount rates that need to be used, plus how long people will stay with the organization and actually gain those benefits. So an actuary is used in the computation of those numbers, and we do communicate with the actuary to ensure that they are adhering to the same standards that we have to adhere to. We do get the report directly from them, and then we make sure that the assumptions are all valid and that the data that goes to the actuary is valid as well. Again, no issues to note in that area. Development cost charges are noted, again, because they have a timing of recognition that coincides with their use. And so we do audit their inflows and outflows in accordance with the accounting rules. Again, no issues to note. A new area in the current year was the adoption of a new accounting standard for revenue. And these are revenues that are not included in such things as tax revenue or government transfers. So this is a new standard that was implemented in the current year, and it really deals with transactional revenue streams. So things like development cost charges would be one of them. Development permits would be another one, rezoning applications, that sort of thing, where there's actually a transaction involved, and there might be a performance obligation on the part of the village. So the revenue is not recognized until the performance obligation is taken care of. Your parking revenue will fall under that as well once that's implemented. So that's an exchange transaction because you're selling somebody something. But of course, with that, as soon as the parking is used, you've recognized that, or you've earned that revenue as well. But that's the kind of thing that falls under this new stream. So again, we've performed all of the procedures that we're required to under that new standard, and no issues were noted. And the final item is public-private partnerships. This is an area that is really, it's more relevant to larger organizations where there might be a private sector entity that constructs something on behalf of and owns a piece of infrastructure, but the local government would basically control it. And it would arise out of a number of different types of contracts. So we did review the contracts of the village and had the discussions with management to ensure that there were no agreements that fall under this standard. I'll maybe just pause there to see if there's any questions from council.
I don't see any. Please
All good.
proceed.
Thank you. The next page, page 9, deals with internal control matters. And we would be required to report to you if we determined that there were any significant weaknesses in internal controls. We did not note any such weaknesses. However, we do remind council that because of the small staff, it's difficult to completely segregate duties and to have a complete and robust system of internal controls. Not to say that there are any weaknesses, but it just is a small staff, and the smaller the staff, the harder it is to have that robustness. So just a matter of interest to you. Next page, 2 pages, unadjusted differences and adjusted differences. There are no unadjusted differences, so these would have been misstatements that we would have passed on in terms of their materiality, so there are none of those. The next page is a listing of adjustments that were made after we started our audit. Some of these may have been pointed out to us by management, and some of them may have been detected through the audit itself. You can see the dollar amounts of those are all fairly small, but they were all adjusted. The next page is a listing of other matters that, if they came to our attention, we would be required to report to you. None of these matters did come to our attention, so there is nothing further to report. And then the final page is some recommended resources. I believe there were some similar pages in our planning report to you. All of those red boxes are hyperlinks to our website, so there may be items of interest there to you. We also do have a public sector specific landing page as well. I think that that link was probably in our planning report, but these do get updated periodically, so if they're of interest to you, I do encourage you to check back periodically. And then finally, the appendices, the representation letter in Appendix A. This is a letter that we require management to address to us, basically telling us that what they have provided to us is complete and accurate. There's nothing that we have asked for that they did not provide us, and that in their opinion, the financial statements are complete and accurate. The independence letter in Appendix B, this is our confirmation to you that we are independent of the organization, and with a public sector organization, it would be typically non-audit services that might compromise our independence. The only thing that we did in the current year was some assistance on the implementation of the accounting standard for revenue, but that was done by a separate group within our firm. Nobody on the audit team was responsible or involved in that. So we did put up the required walls in between the teams, and we don't believe that that impairs our independence. And then finally, the management letter has just a couple of points on, again, kind of the segregation of duties that I mentioned, and just with respect to a smaller organization, management has responded that some of these things would be difficult to implement, but we're satisfied that they've done what they can with the staff that they have, and we do focus our audit in the areas that we think that there could be weaknesses, and have not determined that there are any significant weaknesses. So with that, I'm happy to respond to any questions. I feel like I'm in the kingdom here.
Thank you, Mr. Zabel. Are there any questions from council towards Mr. Zabel?
Just through your words, just thank you for your audit, and much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Vital.
Thank you, Mayor Tallon, through you to our presenter. Thank you once again, as always, a very detailed and report. I do have one question. If I could refer to page 9, internal control matters. And on the right-hand column, you indicate we draw to the attention of Mayor and Council the fact that due to limited number of employees at the village, control weaknesses arising from a potential lack of segregation of duties are difficult to avoid. as a result, continuous diligence and review of financial information is necessary. I know you touched on it briefly in your presentation, but I'm wondering if you could expand just a little bit more on that item. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Through the mayor. In a larger organization, you might have multiple layers of approvals for such things as purchases, and multiple kind of parallel reviews and approvals as well. Obviously, with a smaller number of staff, you can't have that multiple number of layers. And so, it's really and I know that you do get continuous reporting on actuals compared to budget throughout the year. So it's just that vigilance and keeping an eye on where things are compared to where they're expected to be.
Yeah, thank you. And also, we do have some contract consultants that we use on occasion, and because our staff wear many hats on any given day, I thank you for that expansion and that clarity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Schweinbans.
Thank you, Mayor Talon, and thank you, Mr. Szabo, for your presentation. Very clear. This is my first auditing practice, and I'm a layman when it comes to financial matters, but I did see that on page 13 of your report, it's page 118 of our package. At the top there, under cash, you've got two categories of cash: restricted cash and unrestricted cash. And I compare this to our home finances. It's always good to ask my wife and say, okay, how much are we working with this year or next year, that sort of thing. So what is the difference between restricted cash and unrestricted cash?
I'm sorry, is that's a page on our report or the financial statements?
Page 13, it looks like, of your report.
I think that's probably the financial
On
statements.
the
you're
financial
referring to.
statement. You're
Probably a better question for management.
right. Good. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Perhaps could our CFO answer that question while it's fresh?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, through to Councillor Schweinbans. Basically, what restricted cash is a couple different things. One is reserves, and those are controlled by council. So we put away the funds for use at a later date, and that is governed by council. There's several reserve funds, so they are that cash is restricted for certain use. Development cost charges are another thing that we collect from developers that are restricted for certain use. Unrestricted cash is basically accumulated surplus, and that does include developer deposits, which actually is a liability, but it's mostly accumulated surplus.
Thank you, CFO. Is that sufficiently clear, Councillor Schweinbans, or follow-up? Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Auditor Mr. Szabo? I see none. I thank you. Thank you for the work auditing our books. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
That takes us to item 10 on our agenda, which is correspondence. Do I have a motion to receive the correspondence?
So moved, Your Worship.
Moved by Councillor Fascio, seconded by Councillor Schweinbans. Discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And correspondence is received. Item 11 on our agenda is business arising from correspondence. Any business arising from the correspondence this evening? Councillor Vital, I saw your hand first.
Thank you, Mayor Talon. I'm going to refer to correspondence C, letter dated April 19th, 2025, from Gary Webster regarding Fire Smart landscaping. And that is on page 17. Bear with me one moment. I do very much appreciate Mr. Webster taking the time to write to us. But I'm going to refer to our CAO for a little bit of clarity. I know that many of our staff and outside workers have had the opportunity for extensive fire smart training. But to my knowledge, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the real only employee that we have is our gardener. And I'm wondering, has the training been extended and include our gardener? I believe that if we do require landscaping, it's done on a contract basis. And I'm not sure whether we have any jurisdiction over stratas that hire landscapers for maintenance. Perhaps you can fill me in a little. Thank you.
CAO?
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Vidal. Yeah, that's correct. Starting from the end, work our way back. Private property and stratas are responsible for, if they're going to have a contractor on site and if they want to ensure that they're certified through FireSmart, they would have to do that independently. I am happy to report that our Public Works team, including our landscaper, has participated in a staff-led FireSmart 101. And we are awaiting with bated breath for the response from our application for the funding for the FireSmart initiatives. And in the event that we were successful, we would be, any staff member that would be put into the position, the temporary position that we would employ, would be required to ensure that they've met the FireSmart training standards. And to date, we haven't heard anything from UBSM, unfortunately, but we're, like I said, we're prepared and ready to go.
Thank you. That's helpful to me. Thank you. Also, item D, email dated from Bill Wang, with the Vancouver Chinese Film Festival, page 19. I think this is a fabulous idea, and I would move that a letter be forwarded in support of this potential event and encourage the Vancouver Chinese Film Festival to contact our tourism office for more information and how they could support this film festival. So I'll make that motion, Mayor Tallon.
Second that, Your Worship.
It's moved by Councillor Vidal, seconded by Councillor Fascio, letter of support to the Chinese Film Festival. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call a vote. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Vidal. Any further? I might just follow up on your comments regarding certification, FireSmart certification for landscaping. There's probably an opportunity to educate the village about landscaping and the right things to do. And this might be something our Environment Committee is already wrestling with, and how to get the information. So regardless of who the landscaper is, then the homeowner or Stratacorp would be doing FireSmart like initiatives when they landscape.
Just a quick word on that, Your
Councillor Fascio,
Worship,
sure.
if I may. Great what you just said. I don't disagree with you, but I believe that we have the brochure that outlines the type of plants and trees that you should have with the FireSmart as well. I think we have that in place already.
Thank you, Councillor Fascio. Yeah, I think it's just making sure people are aware that there are those resources in the village. Business rising from correspondence. Councillor Schweinbans.
Thank you, Mayor Talon. Yeah, I had a comment on a couple of these. First of all, I was grateful to see that the BCTS got back to you. In fact, the minister himself got back to us. I think that's very commendable of the organization too. I know they've gone through some organizational changes there. So we look forward to learning more about that. And hopefully I look forward to, I think they're going to be in touch with either yourself or staff. And I look forward to a report on that to see if we can solve some of the issues that we had with BCTS to begin with. On page 15, the next letter, the Moose Hide program. I'm supportive of this. I think that the Missing and Endangered Women's initiative and what this is supposed to support is worthwhile of us supporting as a village. And I don't know if we should consult with the Let's Mott group or with our neighbors at the Stehelis, but I think the Moose Hide campaign is something that we should embrace for them. So I will move to support this application, this letter, if we could.
I'll second that, Your Worship. A comment, if I may.
Moved by Councillor Schweinbans, seconded by Councillor Fascio to respond favorably to the letter. Councillor Fascio.
And this, we do not do proclamations in the village, so this will be relevant to number 2 in the letter. We do not carry out proclamations in the village, which is item number 1. So I'm assuming we'll invite staff to register the Moose Hide campaign days. That's you're making a motion for? Number 2? Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Vital.
Thank you, Mayor Talon, through you to Councillor Schweinbans and actually to all of council. I am very much in support of the Moose Hide campaign, and you will see me wear one on June 15th. But what I do want to point out, even though this is an Indigenous-led initiative, it is applicable all across Canada, as indicated in the first paragraph, that over 4 in 10 women in this country have experienced intimate partner violence in their lifetime, and Indigenous women are twice as likely to be affected. With that, I think it would be a good idea, or I would encourage perhaps our staff under number 3 to put in a request for some Moose Hide pins. I'm not aware of where mine is right now, but if staff would mind taking that opportunity to order a few of those, thank you.
Any further discussion to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Councillor Schweinbans.
Thank you, Mayor Talon. I'll just continue here. I enjoyed Mr. Webster's letter as well, very well written. And to the points that's been made by council already, I would like to see the capacity of our staff improved and increased with regards to education around Fire Smart. So if there are opportunities, I'd like to encourage staff to enroll at least a handful of our operations staff so that they can learn and improve the capacity of the village to identify areas of weakness and areas of improvement for our village. The other letter I wanted to comment on is from Mr. Fife. Once again from him, very positive and very constructive and very insightful. And I know that we're going to be talking about the potential construction of a dike, but I just wanted to thank him and other persons of the public that have wrote in about the dike. It's an important decision for us to make, And these are very helpful to help us have a reasonable conclusion to this, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that later. And that's it. That's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Swinbands. Councillor Facio.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just on follow-up on Councillor Schweinbenz regarding the dike. I did get some feedback from some residents regarding that they don't feel that there was enough communication or meetings to deal with that situation. Well, November the 8th, we had a walkthrough with the Stahelis First Nations. This is 23. November 24 was a special council meeting. December the 7th, public open house. December 12th, Get Into It Harrison project page publish. December 12th through January 12th, online survey, Get Into It Harrison, 50 responses received. June 25th, 24, special council meeting. January the 29th, 2025, special committee of the whole. March 3rd, 2025, public open house, plus 2-week period for public to submit questions and comments, and April the 17th, committee of the whole meeting. So I believe the council has covered this very well and with public communication on this. Unfortunately, we haven't got the, in actual physical attendance, the response I would have expected from some quarters of the community, but there you are. We have done our due diligence in informing the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Facio. I have a couple of things to just respond to out of correspondence. The letter from the minister regarding the BCTS, you're correct, Councillor Swinbands, they've already reached out to us, I think, all in advance of receiving the letter to arrange some meetings and some follow-ups. So hopefully those will happen in the next few weeks. Concerning some of the things in a letter concerning the dike project, there are some inaccuracies. The risk of flooding from Harrison Lake, experts have advised the village or council, and slide 8 on the deck that was presented at the last committee of the whole meeting summarizes the flood risk. I'm trying to use the mic. Is that better? Okay. The risk of flooding, slide 8 in the presentation, the slides from the committee of the whole meeting, the last one summarizes the flood risk and also has been summarized in other decks as well. The District of Kent dikes A, B, and C are built to the 1984 flood profile. They were built after the 1894 flood profile. They were built after the flood of 1948, but they were built to the 1894 flood profile. The dike is, approximately 13.9 meters on Harrison Lake today. Uneven settling over the years has created differences in the height of the dike. For purposes of planning, however, the existing dike is measured to be 13.9 meters. The estimated flood height of 14.1 meters from the 1894 flood is not a guess. The height is estimated using sound methods and what experts use for planning. So people that study these things and try and mark this have done the science, done the research, and that is the number they estimate the flood of 1894 was. It's not a guess, it comes from doing studies and research. The province has published flood levels. In the 2008 study, Current Flood Profiles, which includes Harrison Lake, talks about all these flood heights and the risk. This goes back to 2008. That's almost 17 years ago. The bigger report from 2015 is now 10 years old, all showing deficiencies in the dike. The provincial standard today for a dike along Harrison Lake is 15.1 meters. That's what the province says is a minimum level required to meet their standards. That province, since 2015, have noted deficiencies in the Harrison Dike along Harrison Lake for some time. In fact, 2015 was a large report for the whole Fraser and Lower Fraser, and the village of Harrison Hot Springs is not alone in being deficient for flood risk in the dikes. It's not something that the village has made up. This is information we've been given from the province and confirmed by our experts advising the village. Potential challenges surrounding obtaining flood insurance or disaster relief, I wouldn't note those as threats as described. I think this is just part of the reality of living in a floodplain. And today it's the reality of those living where floods have recently occurred. That is just a statement of that's the reality. It's not meant to be a threat, it's just meant to summarize the existing situation. Questions. Since I've been on council, there have been many, many questions from myself and council directed to our experts and to our staff, all on the dike project. From my perspective, all these questions have been answered. Sometimes the answers are uncomfortable, or ones we're hoping were different, but they have been answered. The presentation provided at the committee whole meeting most recently contains a lot of key information. The consultants advising the village are not pushing for the dike project. They're asked to develop a response to flood risk, and they prepared a report and gave us advice as to how to respond to the deficiencies in the dike and the flood risk. They're not pushing for it. They are simply doing the job we asked them to do, which is our dike is apparently doesn't meet provincial standards. What can we do to bring it up to standard? And as Councillor Fascio summarized, there's been, from my view, a fair bit of public engagement going back to November of 2023. Several special meetings, committee of the whole meetings, council meetings, presentations, series of open houses, all of which have informed the information we have to date. I think the original dike proposal that first came at the end of November was an earthen dike stretching the whole way, which received a very negative reaction from the village. And then responding to that, they adjusted with the potential for deployable systems. So there's been, from my view, a significant amount of public engagement and a significant amount of council and staff time and our experts in reviewing the matter to get to the place we are today. And that's all I have to speak to on the correspondence. And with that, I think that takes us to item 12 on our agenda, which is reports from councillors. Councillor Fascio.
Thank you, Your Worship. At the Fraser Valley Regional District Board meeting, April the 14th, there was the electoral areas are sending a letter regarding Bill 44 because they're actually getting a source agreement for services not to exceed $203,000 with Urban Systems for the small-scale multi-unit housing implementation and servicing review. The electoral areas have been more or less told by the province that they'll have to put in coach houses and that sort of thing on their property. So they're looking at how best they can deal with that. So that was one of the areas there. They've also arranged a meeting with the Minister of Emergency Management and Climate Readiness to make their voices heard in regards to the change in our climate. and also a letter to the Premier, Premier Eby, in support of the Lower Fraser Floodplains Coalition concerns regarding funding of flood-related projects. So that was those items there, and also in the Fraser Valley, Chilliwack River Valley, of course, we heard bad news and good news when we got back from Whistler, that the child that went missing was found, so that was good news for that area. But they are going through a series where they have an advocacy plan here where they're going to have to deal with the province in the amount of homeless people and encampments that they have in that area. It's becoming pretty strong in that area. So they're looking at ways on how to deal with that situation, like many other places in the province. Last Saturday, I attended the open house put on by the Environmental Committee and our staff. A great job by the staff who put it all together. There were several environmental booths. They were very important. And I spoke with a lady about the Bear Smart, and she has confirmed that she will be at some point going around the village and putting the hangers on doors regarding Bear Smart and what things you should look out for. It was, I presume it was well attended on Saturday. The 29th to the 1st of May, Mayor and Council attended the Lower Mainland Local Government Association. It was a great conference, and I have to thank the committee association and our own Councillor Vidal is now first vice president, and hopefully next year she'll be the president of that organization. There are about 29 communities that attend this session. It's basically a very busy day on Thursday from 8 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon with many sessions. And of course, the annual resolutions, there were 38 of them, and they went through pretty well. So a well-run conference, and all of your council and your mayor was there in attendance, and it was a long day, but long days. And next year, all going well, will be held in the village of Harrison Hot Springs. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Faccio. Councillor Vidal.
Thank you, Mayor Tallon. I was in attendance at the Lower Mainland Local Government Association in conference. I'm just going to give kind of just a brief overview of the sessions. But first of all, I do want to acknowledge and extend my thanks to our Councillor Faccio, who at the opening ceremony sang "O Canada." The opening keynote speaker was a man named Jim Hogan, on how to deal with toxic public discourse and disinformation. So he is a best-selling author on a book called I'm Right and You're an Idiot. He spent 2 years researching this growing menace of disinformation and misinformation that has invaded public political realm throughout Canada, North America, and around the globe. We had an address from Councillor Trish Mandeo, who is our UBCM president, and there was also a panel that included UBCM talking about taking stock of the trade war and how it would affect local governments. And then a session called The Power of Leadership in Crisis. And we heard from leaders that have had to guide teams and communities through turbulent times. And that panelist was Jason Broland, who you're all fully aware is the fire chief of West Kelowna, the mayor from the village of Lytton, and the general manager on the Sea to Sky gondola when they had 2 incidents of that vandalism. Another session, communicating effectively with residents, how local governments can do the work and roles of elected officials. And it provided an effective and some pretty engaging examples of strategies for sharing the critical work of local governments and how to highlight accomplishments, build trust, and engage residents in meaningful dialogue. There were another one on social procurement, making the money you spend matter, procurement, sustainability, social value, and community benefit. And as Councillor Facio indicated, there were 38 resolutions that were passed by the delegates, and I'm pleased to announce that the resolution submitted by our council passed, and it was endorsed, and it will now be forwarded to UBCM for further discussion on the resolution session there. We also had a presentation by Don Lidstone of Lidstone and Company, highlighting the recommended changes to the Local Government Act. And the last session highlighted our own Let's Mock Community to Community Forum. I had the privilege of facilitating that panel discussion. And it brought together local government and Indigenous leaders who shared their experiences, challenges, and successes. We discussed what has worked, some barriers we may have faced, and hopefully the attendees gained some practical insights into how communities can support each other, fostering and promoting these types of partnerships, and also to provide some insights into establishing their own meaningful community-to-community forum. It was a very engaging discussion, and I do want to give a very sincere thank you to Grand Chief Willie Charlie from Stalis, Chief Jim Harris from Seabird Eye, Councillor Leo Facio, and Mayor Sylvia Pranger from Kent for sitting on the panel. The closing, as always, was, what's the word I'm looking for? It was 2 media people, Vaughn Palmer, who I'm sure you know well, and Alec Lesenby, who are media people and report for the Vancouver Sun on ongoings on the provincial level and in Victoria. So that's pretty well it for the conference. I also wanted to say that on May 2nd, I attended a fundraiser hosted by the Friends of the Library. As everyone is aware, our library is an integral part of our 2 communities, and funds raised during the trivia night. Provides for activities, including Science World coming out to the Agassiz Library during spring break. There was a team of 8 of us. I am happy to say we didn't come in last. We didn't win. It was a fun night. And on May 3rd, I also attended the Earth Day in May open house, and thanks to our Environmental Advisory Committee and our staff members for organizing. It was a good turnout for the first time event, and I even got my kale seeds from our Community in Blooms display. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Talon.
Thank you, Councillor Vital. What Councillor Vital failed to mention in her report, and I'll add to it, is that she was elected as first president to the Lower Mainland Government Association. Uncontested, so much appreciated. Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll make mine really short after all the dissertation that's gone on tonight. I think it's time I maybe move on a bit. I attended the LMLGA, and of course, as usual, I found it very, very interesting. On May the 3rd, the Communities in Bloom were at their first event this year at the Earth Day, and I'd like to congratulate our staff for another great event. Everything was ready for us, and we got here. It was a good day, and you'll be hearing more about Communities in Bloom in the future. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Swinbanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try to be brief as well. The UBCM Lower Mainland Group conference in Whistler, it's hard to know if I was curious going into it, it's hard to know if our village gets value out of these things because it's some considerable cost to send us there. And I was pleased to see that there is. The networking and partnerships and insight that we gain from being with 250 other people from neighboring communities was outstanding, and it'll make a difference in this room and in the village office, I believe. I'm very proud of my colleagues. I didn't think Councillor Fascio was serious when he said that he's going to go up on stage and sing "O Canada," but he did, and he led the whole group, and it was outstanding. So congratulations. And Councillor Vidal led a session on the community group that was started here by Councillor Fascio. So it's outstanding to see them have a front and center part of the sessions for the couple of days. Councillor Jackson is the seasoned, respected man when he walks into any room. And of course, so many people congratulated, particularly Mayor Talon, on how our village is seen in the media and how things have turned around after a few tumultuous years. On this past Saturday, the Environmental Committee organized our very first Environmental Earth Day in May group. I want to particularly thank Chrissy and Kaylee from Community Services and Amanda for all their time and effort. They think they started at 7 o'clock in the morning setting up tables. We didn't get the weather we wanted. We learned a lot. It was our first one. Next one's going to be even better, but I'm very grateful for the help and for the people that came by. I also, Mr. Mayor, want to take 1 minute to talk about bears. We have a bear in our community that's causing some problems. While we were in Whistler, a bear was shot, a bear that had allegedly bit a woman, and that led 3 little cubs to be orphaned. And I think that'd be egg in our face if we let that happen here. I know that it's out of our control. This bear is going to do what it's going to do, but I think as staff and as a community, for people who are listening, we need to make it as uncomfortable for this bear as possible to be in our village. We need to scare him, haze him, rubber bullets, whatever it takes. It'd be awful if this was in the news that we had to put a bear down in our community. I'd like to see us as a village take it a little bit more seriously. I'm constantly on Wednesday nights getting texts from people on different streets saying, "Mark, there's lots of garbage out still." I'd like us to redouble our efforts and get bylaw out there, get our education program moving. I think we need to take this more seriously in the future, and more information on social media on Tuesdays and Wednesday nights to remind residents. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Swinbanks. I'll try and be brief as well. I won't go over all the details of the Lower Mainland Government Association meeting. I would note, though, and I think it's worth noting, it was my first time to attend that type of conference. I'm looking forward to the UBCM one later this year as well. It was the first time I got to attend it. And I think it's worth noting, and Councillor Swinbanks touched on it, that Councillor Jackson, Councillor Fascio, and Councillor Vital are held in very high respect, particularly by a lot of long-serving mayors and councillors from other communities in the Lower Mainland. And there wasn't a conversation I had that didn't sort of bring those things up. So I think it's worth noting the service and commitment to the village that these councillors have had over many, many years. And it was certainly evident to me at this conference by other delegates. I attended the environmental open house on the weekend, and that was an interesting. I thought I would only be here for a few minutes, and I wound up staying much longer than I thought. And it was very enjoyable. I learned a little bit about invasive species that I didn't want to learn about just how difficult it is to get rid of Japanese knotweed. I also attended RCC, which I understand is Resort Community. It's either collective or consensus. It's one of those, but it's the mayor's coalition. I don't know. I hear different ones. And that's the mayors of all the resort municipalities that are working on RMI funding. So we had a quick touch base last week, just sharing where we're at in resource development strategies. And yeah, it's a good forum just to share information and see where other communities that are similar to Harrison Hot Springs are at. I'm not going to take credit for this, so it's really not my report, but our staff have put together, Christy and Kaylee and team, a resident resource guide for emergency preparedness. There will be hard copies at the village office. It's also available online. This has lots of information about how people that live in Harrison Hot Springs can prepare themselves and take the steps necessary to prepare for in case we have a flood or wildfire risk or other types of things. So a very useful guide for residents, hopefully some helpful information there that will build some confidence. It does talk about fire smarting and lots of other good things as well. So I thank staff for that, and we'll be pushing that out on all our media as we go, so give residents a source document. I understand that this document will be kept fresh and reviewed and updated on an annual or periodic basis as needed, so it's not going away. It won't go stale. It'll always be fresh on our website. And I think that concludes, yes, item 13. That's my report. Takes us to item 14 on our agenda, which is reports and minutes from committees and commissions. There's an A and a B, Accessibility Committee and Environmental Advisory Committee. Can I have a motion to adopt the minutes, the adopted minutes be received for
So
information?
moved, Your Worship.
Moved by Councillor Fascio, seconded by Councillor Swinbanks. Discussion to that motion. Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, and that carries unanimously. I think the next item, Corporate Officer, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Tallon. Page 39 of your agenda package is the Accessibility Committee report, and it attached to that report is a very familiar document that looks like the other terms of reference that Council has reviewed for 2 other committees. This one is a little bit different just because this committee is legislated by the Accessible BC Act. And so the recommendation before Council is that Council approve the Accessibility Committee's terms of reference.
So moved, Mayor Tallon.
Moved by Councillor Vital, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Discussion to that motion. Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, and that carries unanimously. Next item, Corporate Officer, when you're ready.
Thank you. On page 43 of your agenda packages, there is a report on behalf of the Committee of the Whole, and this is a little bit of a different process as a result of our new council procedure bylaw. So I've highlighted it, the relevant section down there in discussion. So there are several options available to council. And you'll see that there are two motions in there made by the Committee of the Whole that council reaffirm their past direction to staff to proceed with dike improvements to provincial standards to zones 1, 2, and 6 of the dike project, and that council adopt the Civic Lands Master Plan and staff report back to council on the cost and feasibility of moving the public works yard and pursuing community partnerships. And the recommendation is that council adopt the report of the Committee of the Whole.
So moved, Your Worship.
Moved by Councillor Fascio, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Discussion to that motion. Councillor Fascio. No discussion? Councillor Schweinbenz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under one of the recommendations that council adopt the Civic Lands Master Plan, if I recall correctly, we didn't pick a particular one. There was three options, I believe. I don't believe that we are adopting today one particular one. Is that correct? Perhaps CFO, you can, CAO, sorry, you can.
CAO Cook, can you shed some clarity on this?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Swinebens. That's correct. It was just the adoption of the plan itself, not one specific direction. I think the flavor of council was to kind of explore as many options as we can within that plan.
Seeing no further discussion, I'll call the vote. All in favor of the motion? And that carries unanimously. All right. Item 15, I believe we're at Corporate Officer. I'll leave it to you.
Thank you. Yes, we're on item 15A. We have a report from our planning consultant regarding the amenity cost charges bylaw.
Please proceed. Mr. Cossey.
Thank you,
I didn't see you this evening yet. I was wondering if you were online and I was waiting. Sorry.
No worries.
My fault.
This is a new tool that has been developed or introduced by the province in 2003 through Bill 46/2023, Housing Statutes Development Financing Amendment Act. How they come up with these names is beyond me, but anyhow. The tool replaces the community amenity contributions that was utilized by municipalities across British Columbia. The use of the AAC tool allows the village to collect capital funds for various types of amenities required by a corresponding increase in the village's population due to the approval of development applications. The ACC and the DCC are a similar tool. However, the DCC collects funds for infrastructure requirements, whereas the ACC collects funds for whatever your amenity issues are. You can only use it for capital costs. You can't use it for any operating costs. So in the chart below, you'll notice the difference. There's a comparison between what an ACC does and a DCC, and you notice that the ACC, any amenity issues that are defined as anything social, cultural, heritage, recreational, or environmental benefits. And as I mentioned earlier, it's for capital funds only. The development cost charges is for infrastructure issues, such as your water, sewer, drainage, roads, highways, fire protection, police protection, and in some circumstances for the highway agreements that you enter into with the province. The Inspector of Municipalities' approval is required for the development cost charges. There's a process that you have to go through to get it approved. Through that process, you don't need to do this for the amenity contribution charges bylaw. However, you are required to have a consultation process with the amenity cost charges bylaw with the public and any affected individuals or agencies one or more times. So you have to have at least one community consultation meeting. Whereas in the development cost charges side, you're not required by legislation, but the Inspector of Municipalities looks favorable upon having those types of meetings anyhow. The other thing that's different is that in the DCCs, you do not have to do an annual report, whereas with the ACC process, you'll have to do an annual report. So when we're talking about capital costs, what do we mean by that? Well, this is a process where there must be a clear relationship between the payment and the amenity. It can include the construction, alteration of, or expansion of an amenity. It can include any of the associated planning, engineering, or legal work with that project. And it can cover capital costs for if you enter into a third-party arrangement, you can cover their capital costs associated with that amenity. And as well, you can look at purchasing land with the use of those funds, and it can include the principal and interest on the capital debt of the project overall. So if you collect the funds in year 2, but you've got some interest in from the past, you can use it to pay down that part of the loan. So you can notice here in the middle of the page 46, what is the required content of the bylaw. We won't go into that at this particular point in time. One of the things associated with it, though, is the waivers, reductions, and exemptions. I draw your attention to that, the last section on page 46, where the exemptions are included places of worship, where there's no population increase. For example, if a duplex replaces an existing duplex, then no, that's exempted. However, if you're bringing on a fourplex, so you've got a duplex on there already, and then you're adding another duplex or a fourplex, the fourplex can be added with the ACC issues, but not the original 2 duplexes. Your inclusionary zones, and any of the affordable housing classes, which includes your rental homes, your rental units, your supportive housing, your cooperative housing, your transitional housing, and any emergency shelters. As per Section 570.92 of the Local Government Act, the preparation of the annual report must follow certain criteria, and this includes, that's outlined here partway down the page. But the big thing is you got to have that report prepared by June the 30th of whatever year you bring in the cost charges, the ACC, and have it out there for at least a year so that the public can have a look at it. So how do you determine all of these capital costs? It's just not because, well, we're going to do this project today or that's this project tomorrow. We have to start looking at, there's a process that's similar to the development cost charges. We have to look at various documents and plans that will outline any potential costs of the project. This can include, but not be limited to, any financial plans, any related capital plans, any related asset management plans, or any master plans, or any recreational plans. And the 4 big issues that you have to consider when you're implementing this bylaw is you have to make sure that you've had public consultation. We have to discuss through the bylaw process how we're going to do the payments. We can do the payments as we do through the development cost charges. There's a new regulation out where the developer can do it a third up front and then split the other third over the next 2 years, or 2/3 over the next 2 years. You have to set up an AAC reserve fund, like what you do with your development cost charges, and you must prepare an annual report. Now, this is a wonderful new tool. As I mentioned, it replaces the contributions amenity or community amenity contributions process, which, believe it or not, was never really legal. It was in the gray area, but the ministry had a guideline that we had to follow if you're going to set it all up. So we've prioritized and are currently reviewing the village's zoning bylaw and OCP bylaw because we have to meet that December 25th or December 2025 target of adoption so that we're in compliance with the requirements of the new housing needs requirements. So this becomes our priority and that we'll be working on over the next few months. And after we've done that, then we can add the amenity cost charges bylaw to the other projects that we've been working on and updating. So some of the policy considerations that we've looked at through this process is the strategic plan, the ACC best practices guideline, and the new BC regulation, which deals with how you're going to accept the payment. It can either be all up front, or if you wanted to, and the developer requests it, it can follow that formula that was mentioned earlier. And with that, Your Worship, staff is recommending that the planning consultant's report dated May the 5th, 2025, regarding the ACC bylaw be received for information.
So moved, Your Worship.
Moved by Councillor Vascio, seconded by Councillor Swinebands. Discussion on that. Maybe I'll kick it off. Thank you, Mr. Cossey, for the report. I think we can receive this, and I note the next steps in your report were reviewing our bylaws and preparing a draft ACC bylaw for consideration. So I support that as well. If that's part of the report, then that would be good. I think this new tool brings greater probity and a lot more transparency to what might have been a little bit of a gray area. So I do acknowledge that. I have one question though. This replaces the community amenity contributions, the CAC. So the ACCs replace the CAC. Is there any transition features that need to be built in for existing CAC that the village may have that have to transition to ACC? If I have all my letters straight.
Yes, you do, Your Worship. However, there is no transition. It's the CAC is done.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion in front of us, Councillor Vital?
Thank you, Mayor Tallon. Through you to Mr. Cossey, thank you. Thank you for this extensive report. I also have one question. If we could refer to page 46, at the bottom, potential waivers, reductions, and exemptions. I notice it includes item number D, inclusionary zoning. And I believe I know what that is, but for clarification for those who are in attendance tonight in person and perhaps on Zoom, am I correct? Inclusionary zoning, it's zoning which requires developers to include a portion of any units for affordable housing. And if that's the case, then they could be waived or had a reduction in any ACC. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Vital. Any further discussion? Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, sure. I'd just like to make a comment. All these programs that the government bring in, they sound pretty fancy, pretty nice, but it all relates to capital costs. One thing they never address is cash flow. I mean, to do these sort of big items, you have to have the other money in order to support it. And that's I'm very cautious when I look at this. It's just another, to me, it's another method of downloading onto the municipalities items that the provincial government should address and cash flow to get more money into the individual municipalities so we can operate successfully. So we'll see how this works out. Like the other one, it just may be pie in the sky. I'm concerned about that.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor of the motion, and that carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Cossey. And we look forward to a draft bylaw, an ACC draft bylaw in the coming months. Corporate Officer, the next item, please.
Thank you. Moving on to item 15B, we have another report from our planning consultant regarding consideration of the issuance of a development variance permit.
Mr. Cossey, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. This application will change the village's zoning bylaw for this property specifically to allow the outward expansion of their garage from 5 meters to 14.7 meters when it is built. A change overall of 9.7 meters. During an earlier council meeting held on February 5th, 2024, council required a surface water runoff report to be completed by the applicant. This report was received in March 2025, and the report has been reviewed by staff who have no concerns. The parcel is zoned R2 and is located adjacent to McCombs Drive. Along the northern, southern, and western boundaries of this site, all the parcels of land are also zoned for R2 activities. On the eastern portion of the parcel and across McCombs Drive is the east sector Crown Land area. On pages 50 and the top of 51, you can see there's some diagrams associated with the parcel in itself. The parcel is approximately 697.233 square meters in size and is relatively flat. The change of the current building structure mass coverage with the addition of the proposed 9.7 meter extension could impact the current surface water drainage volumes and directions. The required report addresses these issues. As per Council's last direction, that once the required report was received, that staff was authorized to send the notice of intent to the adjacent properties. We've done that, Your Worship. We sent it out to 30 meters, and as of 4 o'clock or 4:30, we have received no concerns. The policy considerations we looked at was zoning bylaw 1115/2017 and the OCP bylaw. And I'd like to draw your attention to page 55 and 60. On page 55 of the agenda package is the site plan. Page 60 is the servicing plan that came in as a result of the additional report and requirements. And at the DVP itself, on page 53, there's 2 sections I'd like to draw your attention to. The first one being is section 4, and that states that the use must be carried out subject to the following conditions as per section 4.2A sub 2 of zoning bylaw 1115/2017, increase the length of the garage from 5 meters up to, but not exceeding 14.7. There's not a garage on there yet, but in the zoning bylaw, it says if it to be considered as a primary part of the primary building, it can be no more than 5 meters in length. They would like to take it up to 14.7. So this is why the development variance permit is required. The second feature of the development variance permit is section 5, where we've tied the site servicing plan requirements outlined in the guide engineering drawing number 25.02.C.02 dated March 14th, 2025. You can see it's very specific. Must be incorporated into the applicant's building permit application. So we know exactly what we need and require. That's outlined on page 60 of the agenda package. And with that, Your Worship, we're recommending that Council accept the guide engineering memorandum dated March 31, 2025, and the site servicing plan dated March 14th, 2025, and that the site servicing plan requirements outlined on drawing number 25.021.C.02 be incorporated into the applicant's building permit plans. And as I mentioned earlier, those are outlined on pages 56 and 58 of your agenda package. And that development variance permit DVP 03/23 be issued for property located at 604 McCombs Drive, Harrison Hot Springs, for land legally described as Lot 123, Section 25, Township 4, Range 29, west of the 6th Meridian, New Westminster District Plan 52598, PID parcel identification number 005-061-377.
So moved, Your Worship.
Moved by Councillor Faccio, seconded by Councillor Vital. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Faccio, discussion.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Councillor Schweinbenz.
Thank you, Mayor Talon. I was originally concerned about this because it's such fine print, I couldn't tell where McCombs Drive was. I thought the building was going to be going into the back and back onto Lakeburg and be right on the property line. So I'm satisfied to see that it's on the side. and I'm generally supportive of this, and I think there's been no comment from neighbors. And a very similar structure was built just last year. I think it was just completed before Christmas at the corner of Pine and McCombs, and it's a nice structure for sure. I think it's a nice add. But the question I had is with regards to height. Is there any restriction on height for them? My understanding is that the applicant is going to follow along his current roof line, but I just want to see if we are limited to height.
Yes, we are, Your Worship. In the R2 zone, they cannot exceed the maximum height allowance. And when we get the building permit application in, that will be reviewed to make sure that it is in compliance with the R2 zones.
Thank you, Mr. Cossey. Councillor
And
Schweinbach.
so just to follow, and what is the height limit for R2 zones? Is it along the roof line as I suggest?
It's halfway up and it's 10.7 meters.
So he could go higher than his current roof line, is what you're saying? 10 meters sounds
Yeah.
high.
Just as long as he meets the requirements of the zoning bylaw.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll call the vote on the motion. All in favor? Okay. Oh, I called the vote. Sorry, Councillor Vital. If someone saw, I think the motion carried. Did someone see that? Yes, carried. No one was opposed? Okay. Sorry, Councillor Vital, I didn't see that. Corporate Officer, next item.
Thank you. Moving on to item 15C, Report of Community Services Manager regarding filming policy number 1.13.
Community Services Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Tallon. Policy number 1.13, Motion Picture Filming Policy, was adopted on July 12, 2010, and there have been no updates to the policy since that time. No fee schedule was created at that time. However, Section 3(1)D of the policy indicated that the village would establish one in the long term to reflect the village's administration, labor, and material costs. Additionally, Section 3(2) of the policy outlines that no fees will be charged. However, those wishing to film in the village would be encouraged to provide a donation. Since 2010, there have been several motion pictures and television shows filmed within the village. While some film companies made a donation, others did not contribute financially to the village. Staff have conducted a review of filming policies in nearby municipalities, including the District of Kent, Township of Langley, and City of Abbotsford. The City of Abbotsford is a popular film destination, and their fees do not seem to deter anyone from filming within their community. Staff is recommending that policy number 1.13, Motion Picture Filming Policy, be renamed to Film Policy to include the filming of television shows and commercials, while still encompassing motion picture filming. Staff have made suggested edits to policy number 1.13, which include updating current staff titles and responsibilities, as well as ensuring that fees are being received for the issuance of a filming permit. Those changes were previously adopted by Council when they made the amendments to the miscellaneous fee bylaw. There are two recommendations before Council tonight. The first, that Council Policy number 1.13, Motion Picture Filming Policy, be renamed to Filming Policy, and that Council approve Policy number 1.13 as amended.
Thank you, Community Service Manager. Maybe we'll do this one at a time, just in case. We'll deal with the renaming first, Councillor Vital, and then we'll deal with the B. Motion, Councillor Vital moving to rename the motion Picture Filming Policy to the Filming Policy. Seconder to that motion, Councillor Jackson. I saw your hand first. Any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. The second one is, I think Councillor Vital, you wanted to do this as well. Approve the policy as amended. Moved by Councillor Vital, seconded by Councillor Schweinbens. Discussion to that motion. Councillor Schweinbens.
Thank you, Mayor Tallon. During COVID, Julie and I were fortunate enough to be involved in one of the Hallmark movies, and they took over our house for about a week. And if you look at a Hallmark movie called, I think it was called Pass the Bouquet, you'll see our house very prominently actually involved in this movie. And as local businesses, they kind of shut down our block here, but we made a deal and they brought all the crew down, and Richard made them all lunch and we gave them all chocolate, or, they bought a lot of chocolate. It was very beneficial to us. So I'm a big proponent of filming in this community. There's no more spectacular scenery in the world than what we have here. So it'd be great if we could actually not just change this policy, but actually go out and actively get more filming here in the local area. I think it'd be a fantastic place for more films to be done. So I'm very supportive of this. I would like to add that if staff are aware of any films that are happening, it'd be really helpful if the business community could know well in advance so that we could get involved in catering and whatever other services and goods that they may need so that the business community can benefit as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schweinbenz. I think the village's film coordinator would be ideally placed to do that. I appreciate the name change, obviously. I think it's more appropriate. I also very much noted with interest the new BC to G. Permit fees, security deposits, insurance, business licenses are needed, scheduling, and map of filming, and an indemnity of the village for the filming operations. So I think all those are valuable additions and in the interest of the village to have those in place before we issue permits for filming. Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you, Community Services Manager. Corporate Officer, next item, please.
Our next item is a report of our Community Services Manager regarding the Tri-Tennis event.
Back to you, Community Services Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Tallon. This report this evening is to present information to Council regarding a free community event opportunity promoting tennis as a fun, healthy, and inclusive activity. Members of the Chilliwack Tennis Society who live locally contacted village staff about the potential of hosting a tri-tennis event at Spring Park. This event would take place on a Saturday in June and would be free for anyone to participate. The goal of the event is to introduce more members of the community of all ages to the sport of tennis and gain familiarity with the tennis courts located at Spring Park. Tennis Canada has designated the month of June as Tennis Month. In support of events like this, Tennis Canada has created a tri-event guide that the organizers will utilize to facilitate the day. Members from Tennis Chilliwack will be accompanied by a certified instructor, as well as representatives from Tennis BC and a team of organizing volunteers. The tennis courts would be reserved for the tri-tennis event during the date and time that is still to be finalized with the organizers. A special event of this type would typically have an application fee of $50 and a special event use fee of $100. Given that there will be no fees charged, for attending this event and the benefits to the community, staff are recommending that Council consider waiving the special event fees. The recommendation before Council tonight is that the special event fees be waived for the tri-tennis event to be hosted at Spring Park in June 2025.
So moved, Your Worship.
Moved by Councillor Fascio, seconded by Councillor Schweinbenz. Discussion to that motion. Councillor Vital.
Thank you, Mayor Tallon. I think this is completely reflecting upon one of our strategic healthy, livable community. Thank you. I'm very much in favor of the recommendation, and I would also ask that our community services manager, once dates are firm, that it certainly is promoted on our website. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vital. I note that I believe in our audience is someone from the Chilliwack Tennis Society, and if anyone wants to register early or get more information about June is Tennis Month in Canada, fantastic, and the Triad Tennis in Harrison Hot Springs, maybe you can get an opportunity after the council meeting. Any other discussion to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Corporate Officer, next item, please.
Thank you. We have one more report this evening from our Community Services Manager regarding Memorial Hall Policy number 1.18 updates.
Community Services Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Tallon. At the April 7th, 2025 regular council meeting, council adopted a bylaw to amend miscellaneous fee bylaw number 1049, 2014. In reviewing and updating the fee schedule for Memorial Hall, staff concurrently reviewed the corresponding policy. Memorial Hall Use Policy number 1.18 was adopted on August 13th, 2012, and was last amended on September 10th, 2012. Proposed updates coincide with current organizational capacities and simplify the post-use procedures section. This policy is intended to be a high-level framework for the use of the hall. To support renters and ensure that post-use cleanup occurs, staff have developed a post-use checklist that must be adhered to in order for the damage deposit to be refunded. The post-use checklist is referenced in the updated policy. Attached to this report is the updated draft, and the existing policy is also enclosed to compare the updates to the current wording. So there will be, instead of the marked up version, there are 2 copies. The main changes, as highlighted just previously, is in regards to the post-use procedures. We wanted to make it as user-friendly as possible for renters, so we created the separate sheet that renters will receive when they rent Memorial Hall, as opposed to just having all this information listed in a policy that may not be as familiar to the renters in comparison to the checklist. So the recommendation before council this evening is that council approve Memorial Hall Use Policy number 1.18 as amended.
Thank you, Community Services Manager. Moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded by, is there a seconder to the motion? Yes, Your Worship. Councillor Fascio seconds it. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you, Community Services Manager. Next item, Corporate Officer.
The next item is a report of Chief Financial Officer regarding the 2024 audited financial statements.
CFO.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this report is following the audit findings report or presentation that we had earlier tonight. So I'm here for to request the approval of the audited financial statements. I thought before we got into it, I'll just give a really brief overview of how we ended up for 2024. On the revenue side, as we all know, there's quite a rainy start to the summer, so that saw less pay parking revenue. However, we saw extremely strong earnings on investments for interest, so that more than offset that. There was also continued strong flow of grant opportunities from provincial government and other bodies, and we're always on the lookout for more of those. For general expenses, as expected, the village did continue to face high inflationary pressures. Items such as utilities, fuel, insurance, chemicals, and benefits, pretty much everything. Obviously, we did the best we could to mitigate that, and we also had a couple of items of repair and maintenance needed for various village facilities. However, at the end of the day, the total expenses remained under budget, and the village was in a surplus position for 2024. And finally, on the capital side, there were many capital projects kicked off and underway in 2024. However, in the financial statements, there are some cases where there is a gap between the budgeted capital projects and grants versus what was actually spent. And it's basically a result of us having multi-year projects in the go, being the dike, being Hot Springs Road drainage. So basically that funding is carried forward into a future year. So in summary, in my opinion, the village remains in sound financial position. At the end of 2024, there were balances of approximately 8.8 million in reserves, 6.7 million in accumulated surplus, and 5.1 million in development cost charges. So Section 167 of the Community Charter requires that municipalities submit audited and approved financial statements to the Inspector of Municipalities by May 15th of each year. So there are 3 recommendations tonight. One is that the independent auditor's report be received, and then that the 2024 financial statements of the Village of Harrison Hot Springs be approved. and that the independent auditor's report be attached to the approved financial statements of the Village of Harrison Hot Springs. Thank you.
Thank you, CFO. Can we take these as a block or recommended to take them one at a time? As a block? I could have a motion to that effect, to the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Vital, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Any discussion to that motion? Councillor Schweinbens.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Again, my first auditing exercise. Do we fairly regularly churn over or change auditors? Is that standard practice for municipalities as it is in some companies?
CFO?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. We have a 5-year agreement with BDO. It was done through RFP. 2026 will be the final year of that. So we'll be going out for RFP again and then follow that process.
Thank you. Councillor Schweinbens?
Sorry, just as a follow-up, have we used them in the previous 5 years as well? I'm just curious if we should be turning them over. Isn't that standard practice?
The CFO?
Yes, thank you. No, prior to that, it was a separate company out of Hope. I don't think switching audit teams is necessarily recommended. It's possible, but what you do see is if you use the same team, you see continuity. They get to know our business. They get to know pretty much everything about the village. They know what questions to ask. So it's a comfort level for sure, but depends, how RFP goes for sure.
Thank you, CFO. Any further discussion? Councillor Fascio.
Thank you, Your Worship. The previous company we used to have from Hope, I think we had them for about 20 years before we changed. I want to thank our financial officer for the great work him and his team have done. Just tells the public what a good position our little village is in and how we're growing, but we're still maintaining good reserves for the future for the village. It's very gratifying that we have good accounting in our little village, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Fascio. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote on the motion. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Corporate Officer, next item.
Thank you. We're moving on to bylaws, and on page 135 is item 16A. This is the tax rate bylaw, which was previously given 3 readings by council, so there's no report associated with it this evening, and the recommendation is that the tax rate bylaw number 1221-2025 be adopted.
Moved by Councillor Vital, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Discussion to that motion. Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Next item, Corporate Officer.
Thank you. We're moving on to new business. There's new business from Mayor Tallon regarding the dike upgrade project, which was introduced as a notice of motion at the last regular council meeting. I'd be happy to read out the recommendations one by one if council wishes, or however you'd like to do that.
Perhaps they should be read out.
Sure. Would you like me to read the preamble as well?
Yes, Corporate Officer, the whole thing I think is for this decision, I think it's just worthwhile to have it in the record for anyone reviewing this after the fact to see how it was discussed.
No problem. So whereas the village of Harrison Hot Springs is at risk of flooding from Harrison Lake, and whereas the existing dike along Harrison Lake does not meet provincial standards, and whereas the District of Kent dikes A, B, and C are designed and built to the 1894 flood profile, meaning that the village of Harrison Hot Springs is not at risk of flooding from the south from the Fraser River unless the District of Kent dike system fails, and whereas the existing dike along Harrison Lake in Harrison Hot Springs is 13.9 meters above sea level, and whereas the 1894 flood of record, Harrison Lake reached 14.1 meters above sea level, and whereas to meet provincial standards, the Harrison Lake dike needs to be 15.1 meters above sea level, And whereas if the dike project is not pursued, the ability to maintain flood insurance for improvements to properties in Harrison Hot Springs may be compromised, and provincial and federal disaster relief assistance may be harder to obtain, and such assistance may not fully cover costs associated with rebuilding after a flood. Therefore, be it resolved that council proceed with the dike project complying with provincial standards requiring a dike height of 15.1 meters to protect the village of Harrison Hot Springs from flooding from Harrison Lake, and that council pursues flood protection from Harrison Lake with a combination of fixed permanent flood protection structures and deployable flood protection structures, and that the above resolutions be subject to the following. The dike project must minimize fixed permanent features on the existing dike that would adversely affect the current view of Harrison Lake from Esplanade Avenue. The dike project must maximize maintaining the existing views of Harrison Lake from Esplanade Avenue. Construction necessary to complete the dike project should avoid, to the greatest extent possible, heavy construction during July and August, traffic disruptions and reductions in parking on Esplanade Avenue, and also subject to providing residents with the opportunity to provide input on where the deployable sections of the dike will be and where the fixed permanent sections of the dike will be once a deployable system or systems have been selected, and that staff be directed to return to council with recommendations concerning a deployable system or flood protection systems and where fixed and deployable systems will be located.
I'd like to move that. Is there a seconder to that motion? Seconded by Councillor Swinbanks. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Swinbanks.
Thank you, Mayor Talon. There's been a lot of discussion in the community about this, and there's some legitimate, reasonable concerns and questions about this. And I've had a long time to reflect about this. To Councillor Fasho's point, we've had a lot of open houses and a lot of meetings about this that the public have been privy to. And I can't think of a more important decision. So I've wrote down some notes I'd like to share the way that I had to reflect on this today to make a decision. First of all, I mean, there's a historical record well documented in 1893 and 1948 of floods that ruined many families, many businesses, and inundated the area. And also, in addition to the First Nations knowledge, we know that these floods have happened and are likely to happen again within a certain prescribed time, sometime in the next 100 years or so. We've also heard considerable scientific study and thought has been put into this, and the evidence is very clear that we're susceptible to a catastrophic flood. And it's, again, it's going to be very probably happening sometime in the next 100 years. And it sounds like a long time, but if we can do something to solve this, we should do it now. Thirdly, we looked at similar disasters in BC that happened recently. Merritt was flooded and its wastewater treatment plant was destroyed, and it's cost them tens of millions of dollars to fix, and they lost houses and businesses, and they're still recovering. We met the mayor of Lytton in Whistler the other day. They had lost 300 houses, and they've rebuilt 6 houses in the last 4 years. Princeton lost or heavily damaged 300 houses, and they're still waiting on provincial and federal funding to help fix their dikes and to repair. Those families are still out of their houses in many cases. And in Abbotsford, I had personal dealings with friends who lost houses, many of who just bulldozed $1 million houses down in the ground and started over. And they got 10 cents on the dollar. Fourthly, the money. There's going to be considerable, if this is approved, there's going to be considerable effort and construction and great impact on residents and businesses, and we have to take that into account. We have to mitigate that where we possibly can and make careful decisions about how we do this. Fifthly, you know, I'm more of an environmentalist. I think we're causing some of this problem because of our clear cutting and forestry, because of our suburbanization of the land. I think, you know, and I've discussed this before, I think we need to widen the dike system and allow for flooding in low impact farmlands. It only improves farmlands when things are flooded. Those kind of things can help mitigate floods in the future. Even Mayor Talon, if I could suggest, our national animal, the beaver, plays a role in this in the upper watersheds. If we reintroduce beavers to the lowlands and valleys, They create natural reservoirs, even beaver dam analogs, they're called. They create more water retention in the upper Fraser that would help. But the reality is the Fraser River Basin is complex. It's a third of our province. And even though we think that we have no snowpack here, what happens in the northern part of the watershed is that's what causes this issue. So even if, you know, the engineers explained to us, even in an average or just slightly above average snowpack year up on the upper watershed, if we get a heat dome or a major atmospheric river at the same time, then this could cause flooding in here in our lake, even though we don't have any snow and snow melt. And overlaid on this is climate change, and they say that these events are going to be more extreme and more frequent. $11 million question, it is, and yes, we have so many other priorities, probably better solution or better uses of $11 million, but the reality is we've been granted by the province this money to do this project, and who knows if we'll ever get it again if we say no to this. In fact, we learned that the province might have in legislation something called Bill 15, which allows them to take over major infrastructure projects, and they might ram this down us anyways if we don't approve it. And it'll be on them to design it, and it won't be our solution. My other reflection is that a flood will be catastrophic. As I mentioned, those other communities, that takes years and years to rebuild. And there's $1.6 billion worth of building here in Harrison. We have a responsibility to try to protect it wherever we can. And we may lose a season for construction. We may be, it may be inconvenienced during its construction, but the reality is we could be out 3 or 4 years out of our homes if we get flooded. And even where I live in a brand new place on Emerson Cove, I've learned that the building is constructed such that the flooring may be okay, but basements will be flooded in the whole village. And when basements are flooded, it's not just water you have to pump out, it's mud and silt and dead animals and pollution and everything else. So in conclusion, I think we can do this. I think we need a made in Harrison solution, a solution that preserves the beachfront that we all love, that preserves our environment, that improves our infrastructure and amenities on the waterfront. I think we need to engage the community, continue to engage the community, reach out for creativity and some ideas from our residents, and we need to go to best-in-class design and engineering, maybe do an RFP, as was mentioned today by Mayor Tallon. I think we can build it. I think we can build it well, and I think we can build it together, and I'm supportive of your resolution. Thank you.
Councillor Pacho.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for your comments, Councillor. I fully agree with you, but I will point out to the public and those that are listening that 1, 2, 3, and 4 outlines how we're dealing with this. It's not a signed deal yet. Still got to come back to council and the public. So I've dealt with this situation for over 20 years as the former mayor with District of Kent, Chilliwack, Abbotsford, and even came up at the Lower Mainland Conference in our C2C forum regarding the removal of sediment from the Fraser River, which has always been refused. So the days of saying it will never happen, I'm afraid, as Councillor Schweinben says now, with the climate change, global change, I wouldn't want to be responsible for hundreds of homes being flooded or anybody losing their lives or their livelihoods. So we've gone through this very cautiously. It's nearly over a year and a half so far. We've been dealing with this, but it's not finished yet. And I look forward to when the staff come back to council with their recommendations. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Vital.
Thank you, Mayor Tallon. I have struggled with this. And all my years on council, I think that this is one of the most difficult decision that has faced me as a councillor. I do want to commend Councillor Schweimitz for your earlier comments. I fully agree with you. And I think the largest danger here in Harrison is not from the Fraser. It will come from Freshet. And this year, we have a higher level snowpack than in previous years. And the danger comes if it melts too quickly. It's fine if the freshet comes slowly, but we are all aware of the beautiful weather that we enjoy and have enjoyed over the past couple of weeks. I don't have with me the update on the snowpack level, but it will be coming out soon. Like I say, I have struggled with this. But I need and I will err on the side of public safety. So therefore, I support the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vital. Councillor Jackson.
I'm going to make it simple, Your Worship. It's time to stop talking and it's time to start doing. We can beat this for the rest of our lives. Let's get on with it. We need it. If you have a portable one, that's fine. But we're getting a situation here where we talk. It's time to move on. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. The motion was mine, so I won't speak to that other to say this is a difficult one. It'll have long-lasting implications. Regardless of how the vote goes, it has lasting implications for the village. I want to thank, actually, the level of engagement from residents of Harrison Hot Springs and how passionate they have spoken for, against. Their questions have certainly helped me understand the dynamics and the challenge. Staff have been very, very supportive, finding information, working with our consultants and experts on this. And the information we have is quite comprehensive and the argument compelling. With that, I'll call the vote on the motion. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Are there any notices of motion this evening? Seeing none, we're on item 19 of our agenda, which is question period for items relevant to the agenda. Are there any questions tonight? I see one. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oops, a little loud. My name is John Allen. I live at 398 Hot Springs Road, and for about half of the financial year of 2024, I was a member of the council, and therefore I've got a bit of an interest in this financial report that we received tonight. I'm not very happy about the fact that we're only getting to look at the draft financial statements at the beginning of May, 5 months into the year, or 4 months into the year. And my experience as a councillor was that the auditors were not receptive to questions from myself or from Mayor Wood, and I found that disturbing. I've sat on many audit committees and been involved with auditors for 40 or 50 years, and I had never in all of that time encountered an auditor who said to a director, "We don't really want to hear from you." It was dismissive, and it bothered me deeply as somebody with financial responsibilities. I'd like you to turn to page number 98 and 99 on your agenda and explain to me what this letter is about. 98 and 99 in your hymn books. It's on BDO letterhead, and it just seems to be a series of question marks. The only words I can pick out are circumstances and generally accepted accounting, which is probably a reference to the GAAP standards. What is the rest of this letter about? Can you see it? Can you read it? It's not English.
Well, thank you for your questions. I have 3 written down right now, and I'll try and respond to them. Regarding the timing of financial reports, it's my understanding we're complying with all provincial regulations and guidelines regarding the production and submitting of financial statements. Is that correct, CFO?
That's correct, Your Worship.
Thank you.
So
Regarding questions, I'm going to answer your questions, Mr. Allen, that you've
it's
asked.
unintelligible. Whatever's written here is not English.
Your second question was whether or not the auditors responded to questions. I think
Yes.
this evening there were a number of questions presented to the auditor, and the auditor genuinely answered them in a professional way. Your third question deals with the letter found on pages 98 and 99, and that looks like a standard engagement letter acknowledging that the firm BDO has been engaged by the Council of Village of Harrison Hot Springs to conduct the audit. Are there any questions
Sorry.
from anyone participating? Those are your questions, I've
Well,
answered them.
why didn't somebody ask that question of the auditor when you had him here? Would be one of my questions.
I'm going to go to questions from anyone participating remotely. We asked our questions of the auditor, and the auditor answered them.
Yes, but you didn't ask that
Any
one.
questions from anyone online?
Mr. Mayor, I haven't finished with the audit.
Anyone on Zoom, if you have a question, please raise your hand. No questions from Zoom, Your Worship.
Thank you. I see someone else who has a question. I will entertain a question from Mr. Webster, who's
But
behind you.
I have
Mr.
another
Allen.
question about the audit, Mr. Mayor.
We had 2 minutes for questions. You asked 3 separate questions. I've answered them.
So are you cutting me off? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Mr.
Well, that's
Webster,
very
Mr.
unfortunate.
Webster has a opportunity to address questions under this agenda item, just like you did. Mr. Webster.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. It's in regards to my letter I wrote. It's not so much directed towards the village and its education or training of staff. It's more about education of landscapers who come into the community and work upon residents' yards or businesses, and who don't have any understanding of fire smart practices. And they do work that is, can put that homeowner in harm's way, and maybe the neighbors in harm's way. So I just thought it would be a good thing for the village, excuse me, to instead of being best, be better, and promote and lead instead of follow, and be a leader on this subject, and maybe, make it a requisite that any landscaper coming into the village has taken this course, as Fire Smart course. It's pretty easy to do, it's online, and it's not a big thing, but it's very educational, and then you're not putting your client and the neighbor of your client in harm's way. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. I don't think anyone on council disagrees with the sentiment behind your, on that, and it's a challenge of how we could regulate those kind of businesses. But I think we did talk about information, and hopefully residents can know how they could maybe advise their landscapers and do more landscaping that's fire smart. CEO, anything to add?
Thank you, Your Worship. Basically, you said exactly what I would say, is that I would encourage the homeowners or strata owners, if they're going to be hiring a contractor, perhaps it might be best for them to vet their contractor and ensure they met those requirements under the Fire Smart initiative.
Thank you, CEO Cook. Motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Fascio, seconded by Councillor
Excuse me?
Jackson. Any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, and we're adjourned at
Very good.
7:30 in the evening. Thank you all.
Very good. Yeah.